I want to start off by thanking everyone and welcoming you to this session here at I3. It is an insightful webinar focused on time. So innovative strategies to save valuable time and streamline operations by leveraging advanced technology. From optimizing customer-doctor interactions with cutting-edge software to interacting electronic quality management and traceability system. Our goal here is to help your clinic run smoother than ever before. And we are going to explore how automating the most basic yet essential tasks in the IVF lab can free up your team's time, allowing them to focus on what truly matters. And this is delivering exceptional patient care and achieving the best possible outcomes. Now, being that said, we're going to keep the bios short for this evening, but the full extensive resume of the careers of the experts here tonight can be found on the I3 website. Now, I am very excited and I'm joined here by two co-hosts. The first is Dani. She has been an embryologist for 9 years, starting her career in London before moving to the south coast of UK. Over the past 3 years, she has worked as a locum embryologist, a choice inspired by the flexibility she gained after teaching herself graphic design during the lockdown. The added creative dimension to her professional skill set. Now, Dani's passion for sustainability in the IVF sector began with a research study focused on reducing plastic waste in IVF labs. She later had the opportunity to present her findings at the I3 Green IVF webinar and collaborated with talented team on the sustainability in the IVF laboratory paper.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction. To reciprocate, we've got Michelle Coromina, and she is a registered nurse and certificated specialist in human reproduction medicine, a dedicated patient and client advocate with a strong background in customer support and sales processes. She's currently undergoing a certification on the fundamentals of clinical embryology in the IVF laboratory, imparted by the prestigious university UNAM in Mexico. Her current work is for an AI company, IVF 2.0, being the primary link and first contact to clients and potential customers, assisting them during the complete process, identifying and evaluating client needs. I'm also joined today by Janefrances, Ugwuodo, who is an experienced clinical embryologist at the Bridge Clinic Fertility Center in Nigeria. She is also an advocate for girls' rights and serves as a sexual and gender-based violence instructor for the Foundation of International Gender and Human Rights.
Thank you very much, Dani, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening for this webinar that promises to be very insightful. For our attendees, please do well to send in your question to the Q&A section. Please do not send them to the chat function box. This is to enable us to collate all those questions and propose them to the moderators. Thank you very much. So I would go ahead to introduce our first presenter for today. We will be having Cecilie Jakobsen. Today, she tells us that it's time to evolve. This talk is kindly sponsored by Wawa Fertility. It's good to know that Cecilie Jakobsen is the CEO and co-founder of Wawa Fertility. She founded Wawa from her own experiences with pregnancy loss. In her experience, she saw that the fantastic works completed by doctors and nurses are being held back by broken software systems. And this is what bettered Wawa. Today, Wawa has been used by more than 30,000 patients and its leading clinics worldwide. Cecilie, you have the floor. Please tell us how to scale our clinics to meet rising patient needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the very good introduction. Very happy to be here. Yes, so as briefly mentioned, I founded Wawa almost 4 years ago due to my own experiences. It was insane, to say it at least, to experience for the first time. I'm from Denmark. We have a pretty good healthcare system, and getting familiar with the fertility space was a pretty insane experience, and that is what we're going to talk a bit about today and what we're doing at Wawa. We are supporting clinics with a new operating system in actually scaling and growing their business into the new patient needs. So when we talk about patient needs, it's not only actually about the patients, it's also about the business, the clinic, and it's also about the care teams working in the clinic, because of course everything is very connected. And let's just get started. The things that we're going to talk about today is what is actually the situation when we are talking about these increasing patient needs. What is the current situation? What is the solution and the impact of that solution? And where to begin if you want to start actually doing something about this. So this is probably not news to you guys, because you are human beings yourself living in this world. But of course, the past 10, 20 years, there's been a huge digitalization happening. So this means patients today, normal consumers, we expect convenience, speed, and transparency. And as you probably all know, this is not actually something that's happening a lot in the fertility space when you're in fertility treatment. So what we're used to from our day-to-day, especially the people getting treatment between 20 and 45 years, we're used to Netflix. We can binge watch whatever we want when we want it. We're used to Uber, either picking up us up or delivering food, whatever food we want. Same with Deliveroo, or ordering whenever to wherever from Amazon. So at the same time, we have everything near us. We have access to everything. This is what we call the rise of consumer-driven healthcare. I actually saw my friend yesterday, and she told me about, she's just been through egg freezing in New York. And she told me that she had this feeling that the doctors basically hated her, because when she came into all of the initial consultations, she had all of her notes with her, and she did amazing research, found out what is the best doctor, what is the success rates, what should she expect, what is the questions that she's asking about. So this is what the consumers or the patients are doing today, and this is what they're expecting from you guys. Uncompromising expectations for convenience, speed, and transparency. As you probably know, this is not what they're being met by when you actually enter a fertility clinic as a patient. And this is not due to people working in the fertility clinic that are not digital or not know anything about this. My own experiences from a fertility clinic, pretty fast, I saw that from spending a lot of time in fertility clinics, that the infrastructure or the administrative layer in fertility clinics, it's very old. This is systems that was developed many, many years ago. It's systems that are mainly putting extra tasks on the care teams instead of actually taking tasks away. And that is modern digital infrastructure. Modern digital infrastructure is actually made to do most of the job. So the clever people, clever humans, in this case, well-educated people, could actually spend more time with the patients. So because of this legacy tech, because of these fragmented systems and very paper-based processes, it's actually making it harder to create great patient experiences. The reality for fertility patients is actually what we are looking at right here. This is not something that's very old. This is a treatment plan. I think you can see the date somewhere. That's actually around 3 months old. Egg freezing process in this case. As you can see in this piece of paper, you've 100% seen them before, but this is what the patient will get when they go into treatment. There is a lot of different information on this piece of paper. You can also see in some cases that there's wrong information, so it's been overwritten and someone has been writing it all over again. You don't even just get your information about what location you have to come to, or what appointment types, or what medication you're taking, or when it's coming out of the fridge. You are actually also getting names here from the people that are going to treat you. In this case, there's 7 different names. You are also going to be told that you have to log into 3 or 4 different platforms to actually get the option to text or write your care team, or get the full information. That can be encrypted emails you have to log into, or get a WhatsApp, or having to call them on the phone. One thing is the patient experience here. Another thing is it takes a lot of time to actually make a piece of paper like this for the care teams. Another thing is also, if this piece of paper, a physical piece of paper, is the actual one source of truth, this clinic is missing out on a lot of amazing data, structured data that could actually be used in the future to create better treatment, increase success rates, and make the job even better for the care teams. So what does this actually mean for the fertility clinics? Because this is not only patients that are experiencing increased anxiety or giving clinics more or bad reviews. This is also affecting the business. So because it takes a long time to actually get the first appointment or get the information you need from the clinic that you're reaching out to, we are seeing declining conversion rates. For care teams, as you probably know, there's a lot of stress, heavy administrative workloads. There's very long onboarding times for new staff members. Normally, when we're speaking to clinics, it takes around a year to a year and a half to onboard new people in patient intake teams, patient inquiry teams, nurse teams, because there's so many manual systems and processes that people need to learn to be able to actually take over. This, of course, is also affecting the business. In many cases, a fertility clinic is also a business. So because there's no ownership and structured data, there's actually a lot of missed opportunity in this, missed opportunity in insights about the treatments, but also in insights about the business and how we can actually optimize the business. There's also a very high cost due to these very manual workflows. And then because of patients dropping out of treatment or never starting up or never receiving their invoices, there's actually also revenue leakage in this. As mentioned in the beginning, we are not seeing this as only let's do what we can to create a better patient experience. This is also about creating a better care team member experience because it's very well connected. There's many studies showing that care team stress and burnouts are 100% correlated with how good reviews the patients are giving a clinic. So this is very important all the way around. In our opinion, technology should be used as an enabler of care teams and creator of seamless patient experiences, not as it is today, something that are actually putting more tasks on the care teams. So we have to rethink how we are actually building what we call the tech stack of a fertility clinic. What we have seen the past 5-10 years is that instead of just working with legacy tech systems or the current EMRs in the market, a lot of clinics have been trying to actually solve some of these issues by adding point solutions that can be patient communication, patient apps, it can be consent systems, it can be a lot of different things. The problem is that it's still not solving some of the issues that I mentioned in the beginning. Some of the issues being now patient needs to log into many more platforms and there's no one source of truth. And care teams are also having to actually sit across many different systems. This is causing even more stress, but it's also in some cases causing more human errors, unfortunately. That is why we see the future of fertility treatments or infrastructure as all in one place. Technology can actually do a lot in the fertility clinic. And when I'm saying that, I'm not yet talking about all of the amazing things that you in the future will be able to do with AI or machine learning, because fertility clinics needs to start in another place, actually in the first place, creating a better infrastructure, having one source of truth when it comes to data, creating more transparency internally, and also make sure that care teams are starting to actually trust tech, because that is definitely and also fully understandable, not something many people do today because you've had very bad experiences. So when we are talking about easier or the low-hanging fruits, where can we actually do something to enable clinics in scaling into these patient needs, but also making the day-to-day work for care teams even better? Many clinics are experiencing, or patients are experiencing, month-long waiting times to actually start up in treatment. We can help that with creating something as simple as smart booking and smart scheduling. So it's easier for patients to actually just go in and book their own treatments. We can remove many of the paper-based processes by digitalizing and automating many of these clinical workflows. We can make sure all communication is easy for the patients and in one place for the clinics. We can make sure to always give care teams the right data at hand, so patients will always feel known. And we can also make sure that there's no more manual data inputting. This is a technical or a classic example that we are seeing. This is a case that we were working on recently. A situation where a clinic came and said, we have very slow response at times, even though we have a lot of admin people working here, poor patient satisfaction, there's a high staff turnover, and staff is wasting a lot of hours doing manual work, manual data input, and then there's a very low conversion rates in patient intake. Their tech stack, as I was mentioning before, so all of the technical tools that they're using in the clinic, they had one EMR, but this EMR was structured in 4 different databases. So because they have 4 different locations, they weren't able to actually have one way of looking across all of these different clinics, even though it's basically one clinic. Everything was on-premise server that unfortunately very often was not working. There's 3 different systems for patient communication, an app, email, and WhatsApp. And then there was an accounting tool that was not connected to anything. So the accounting tool could never really see if invoices was actually paid or not. A consent tool, a point solution, a content tool for patients, and then 3 different patient intake tools to support the clinic and actually taking these patients in. Everything was restructured to one platform, all of the things I mentioned in one platform, connected with a patient app so we can digitalize all communication and all workflows, and integrated with all the hardware in the clinic, ultrasounds, witness platforms, whatever is in the clinic. So no one has to actually put in this data manually, but it will just be pre-populated into the system and visualized in a very easy way for the people who need it in the care teams and also for the patients. And then integrated with the accounting system. This has a pretty big impact in many different areas of the business. There's an optimized ROI. There's a huge decrease in admin time. So care teams can actually spend more time with patients. More time with patients makes happier care team members, but also happier patients. And then a very big boost in actual care team and patient satisfaction. Yes, whoops. So let me just skip one back here. So what it actually means positively for clinics is that you will get more and better visibility. You will get better metrics in the clinic, able to perform better actions, and then create better outputs. So this will enable clinics to actually scale efficient workflows and create magical patient experiences. You'll be ready to serve a new generation of fertility patients and actually meet their demands. You will be able to attract better care teams, because this is also what the next gen of doctors and nurses and other people in the clinic are expecting day to day. You will also be able to have a higher profitability in the clinic and larger competitive advantage with all of the structured data that you are actually gathering. In the same time, if you're not doing anything about this, the risk of scaling ineffective workflows will be bigger and bigger. You can lose patients to some of the more tech-forward competitors in the market. More and more are definitely coming. And you will also be stuck with the outdated systems that cannot be improved or maintained in the future and cannot be integrated with some of all of the new systems that we know you guys also want to use. And this will also have a huge impact on, of course, your profitability. So how to actually start scaling your fertility clinic? Invest in systems that are actually enabling you to integrate with the systems that make sense for you. Integrate in a way that you don't have to work across all of these point solutions, but you can actually start differentiating your workflows and your clinic based on the tools or the companies that you decide to work with. When I'm talking about integration, I'm meaning create one full tool and experience for the care teams, but also the patients. This will create faster workflows, reduced errors, and much better patient outcomes and experiences. You should also be better at actually leveraging the data that you have, because I'm a data analyst by background, and what I've seen in fertility clinics is amazing and something that you can actually use in the future, but also right now, to create better workflows and better outcomes for patients. Unfortunately, a lot of it is caught up in these on-prem databases, and there's really no transparency for you guys. I guess a lot of you are fetching out these reports every time you need to actually access some of this data. This should be more transparent and more visible for you guys. And then, of course, also enhance patient engagement. This is something patients really want to do. They want to be involved more, but without, of course, taking up too much of your important time. So hopefully what you got from what I've been talking about the past few slides, most of the patient pains that patients are experiencing today, that you're listening to from patients, actually is flaws that trace back to the legacy tech systems that most of you guys are still working in today. Adding more tech to the current system, current infrastructure, actually doesn't solve anything, because it's just creating more complexity, and we need to remove complexity from your workflows, from the patient experience, and from the tech stack. And systems that allow you guys to actually integrate, so you have to spend less time on paper-based processes and manual data inputting, is the future, and something that will make your job much easier. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Cecile, for your talk. That was amazing. I do have a question for you based on our listeners today. So do you find that different countries have different regulations about online consent forms?
Online consent forms?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. There's very, very different rules about consents in the different countries. So you can luckily have tech that are actually, what can you say, something that can be configured very easy into these different consent regulations in the different markets. So tech is easy to actually model into these different elements and should not all be a problem. So the focus has been from our side to actually create a consent solution that is creating the best experience, most automated experiences for the care teams, and the best and easiest experience for the patients. So there's no extra burdens here.
Okay, fantastic. Now, we will discuss the next questions that our listener has in our Q&A section. Now I am going to introduce our next speaker, and it is an honor for me to introduce Matt Pettit, A Stitch in Time Saves 9, in a talk sponsored by IMT Matcher. So Matt is the Chief Scientific Officer for Matcher Technologies, responsible for development and implementation of Matcher, a barcode-based electronic witnessing system, labeling, scheduling, and traceability system with the interactive dashboards for visualization, analysis, and reporting of Matcher data insights. Now, another fun fact is that Matt is also a trustee and scientific advisor to Nature Safe. It is a new initiative working in collaboration with the World's Zoo for the long-term storage live cells from animal species that are at the greatest risk of extinction. So take it away, Matt.
Thank you very much, Giles. Thank you, Michelle, Dani, and Janefrances for moderating. Here's my declaration of interest, just to get that out of the way. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer for Matcher Technologies, who provide electronic witnessing, traceability, and insights. The phrase, "a stitch in time saves 9, originates from 18th century England, and the phrase uses a sewing metaphor, meaning if you fix a small tear with 1 stitch right away, you save yourself from needing 9 stitches to fix a bigger tear later. The idea is to encourage timely action to avoid more significant problems in the future, to take a proactive approach. And in your world of assisted reproductive technologies, you already know that time means everything, and it's crucial for all fertility centre teams. For laboratory directors, finance directors, and quality managers, more time spent on tasks increases costs and risk. potentially making embryo production economically unviable. And for clinical staff and embryologists and laboratory staff, long hours and multitasking can reduce performance and well-being and safety, and it increases the risk of errors, especially when we consider a person's attention span. According to the authors Schuyler and Balota, a person's attention span can be described as the amount of time spent concentrating on a task before becoming distracted. And although there's no real empirical evidence to support it, the general consensus based on my review of literature is that the attention span in adult humans aged between 18 and 50 is only around 20 minutes. Much as humans try to focus on tasks, they lose concentration inadvertently. Just as it's impossible to hold on to a thought indefinitely, the human consciousness cannot avoid responding to a particular stimulus or distraction. And fellow biologists already know that, like most animals and plants, humans are subjected to circadian rhythms, and the human brain could be regarded as a sophisticated clockworks that responds to all sorts of stimuli throughout the course of a 24-hour period. Because of the diurnal hormone secretions in our brains, our levels of alertness vary at different times of the day, and this is an important human factor in any safety-critical occupation, just like healthcare and aviation, for example. IVF professionals are lucky in the sense that most practitioners are not expected to work a night shift, but there are still some times of the day, like just after lunch, when our physiological sleepiness is greatest and performance capabilities are at their lowest. This is known as the window of circadian low, or the WOCL. So if you do fall asleep before the end of my presentation, I won't be too offended. You're only human after all. But it's about striking the right balance and saving time and cost throughout the course of the day or the week or the month can provide significant benefits to your fertility centres, like improved patient care, spending more time focusing on the most important patient-centric work leads to better care. And we're now learning more and more that laboratory staff especially face high levels of stress due to long hours and heavy workloads. Effective time management can help to reduce this stress by making workloads more manageable, which can decrease burnout and improve overall job satisfaction, and also an enhanced work-life balance, together with increased opportunities for career advancement. Also, by optimizing time, fertility centres will increase their productivity and efficiency. This means more patients can be seen and administrative tasks can be completed more efficiently, leading to a better use of resources, which leads to better financial outcomes. It can also increase revenue by allowing fertility centres to treat more patients within the same time frame. Implementing a total management system that facilitates time savings can also reduce the risk of error in your fertility centre. And we know that the fear of making a mistake exists amongst the industry because as developers of quality management systems, we frequently ask you. The aim of the most recent survey conducted by us earlier this year, for example, was to firstly gauge the level of concern within the profession, and secondly, to ascertain how electronic witnessing and traceability systems can mitigate these concerns. In our survey, 88% of the respondents expressed concern about making mistakes, especially when performing laboratory procedures, and 57% of the professionals surveyed also felt that their ability to perform some of their duties had been compromised at least once in the last 6 months as a result of human factors. The research cited here will often refer to the current occupational challenges in relation to human factors that usually sit at the root cause of all errors, without exception. So it's therefore unsurprising that the top 3 reasons for mistakes, according to our survey, were directly linked to time. Those being stress or pressure, distractions and fatigue, and tiredness. And these human factors can be positively or negatively influenced by how you manage your time. Therefore, it might be time to explore ways to enhance your systems to alleviate some of the burden of responsibility and some of that fear that exists within the industry. Perhaps it's time to confront our fears head on and explore significant time-saving control measures to mitigate these issues. But as my grandma often used to say, where do we find the time? Well, the first step to developing an enhanced quality management system that saves time is to invest time in evaluating your current activities. Consider how these tasks can be streamlined and performed more effectively, and this proactive strategy will undoubtedly be worth it. Because remember, as the saying goes, a stitch in time saves 9. You'll find this list of activities where time's being spent is very long, but it will include things like human double witnessing and paperwork or form filling, transferring information from one place to another, labeling, workflow scheduling, training and onboarding of your staff, setup, which Bec is going to be talking about in a moment, auditing, lot traceability, inventory management of products, prior management and auditing or prior governance, and communicating between other members of the teams or notifications, and many other things. And now that you have your hit list of time sinks, it's time to think about ways of solving these issues, because they are issues. Anything that uses your extremely precious time and distracts you from the core focus of treating patients is an issue for both you and your patient. So let's consider a few things together. Let's jump in and consider labeling first. Handwriting on Petri dishes and test tubes, and especially on items where space is limited, like vitrification devices and the biopsy PCR tubes, is a complete waste of time. It's also a risky practice because of the variability and illegibility of a person's handwriting. How do you put a stitch in time here? Well, it's simple. You use a customizable electronic labeling system that's already been automatically linked to the patient's cycle. This not only saves an enormous amount of time performing the tasks of handwriting, but it's much safer too. But critically, using a digital labeling system that's integrated with your existing patient management system provides the opportunity to assign an electronic identifier to the label, like a barcode. The best systems can print pre-assigned labels for the entire cycle of treatment at the beginning of the patient cycle in one go in the time that it takes you to hit the print button. Labels are globally unique too, which means you can now electronically identify or witness the patient and the specific gamete or embryo, which leads to our next significant time saving. This is the issue we're really trying to solve. It seemed like a good idea at the time when human double checking was introduced in the early noughties in response to mistakes with patient identification. And at that time, it was a good idea. But time's moved on, and the industry now has access to well-developed and validated electronic systems that can use the electronic identifiers on the labels to do this for you. You can completely replace the second person with an electronic witnessing system that actually does the job better, because removing the human, together with the human factors that they're vulnerable to, means a false positive is no longer a possibility. But let's think about the time saved. There have been numerous time and motion studies, including one at a fertility centre in the UK performing 1,800 ICSIs and IVF cycles and 900 FETs and IUIs combined. And removing the time to call over a second person, prepare and complete the paperwork, and replacing this with a photographic scan of the barcode saved on average 116 seconds. But that's per procedure. So if one equates the time savings to the number of procedures witnessed in these different types of cycle, a centre of that size wastes almost 150 working days per year just witnessing procedures. Can you imagine what you could do with that time if it was given back to you? And Bec Holmes, who's going to be talking later, my esteemed colleague, she also completed a similar study with the CCRM group of fertility centres in the USA, and they too found significant time savings could be made by introducing a barcode system to replace the second person. This data speaks for itself. It's a no-brainer. And a well-designed electronic witnessing system solves a third time-related issue, which is manual form filling and unnecessary transcribing, which put simply is the process of converting spoken words and observations into written text, which is very time-consuming. Remember the 10 seconds it takes to electronically witness the procedure. This includes automatically recording the who, the where, the what, and the when, and sometimes even the why. So who performed the procedure, who was the patient, where was the procedure performed, what was the procedure, and when, together with the result. And if this was not the result that you expected, you're recording what were the reasons why. But it's even more than that. It's much more than just electronic witnessing. In that same 10 seconds that it takes you to capture the barcodes, you're actually capturing a massive amount of immensely significant data, the type of which can be used to answer your most important questions. And in some cases, this even includes taking a photograph of all of the items scanned, and a picture tells 1,000 words. We still observe that many fertility centres record information in one place and later manually transfer it to another system, often at the end of the day or even at the end of the week. This practice is common with electronic medical record systems, or EMRs, and it involves retrospectively inputting data into tables instead of capturing it automatically in real time during procedures. This not only creates extra work, but it increases the risk of transcription errors. And this is where barcodes are the king of the data capture jungle, because barcodes are the link between the physical world, where the data is managed by humans, and the digital world, where the data can be integrated through application programming interfaces, or APIs, and managed by computers. In a quality management system, there should only ever be one source of the truth, as Cecile has already said, even if this means that you only visit one system to recall that information. A prime example of this is tracking lot numbers, expiry dates, and inventory of consumable products. It's really surprising that in our digital age, many fertility centres still use manual paper-based systems or Excel spreadsheets for this task. But how can we improve and expedite this process? Well, this is where global standard barcodes, known as GS1 barcodes, come in. These barcodes are already present on nearly all healthcare consumables. So utilising them can save both time and, of course, money. There are already electronic witnessing systems like Matcha that automatically link every product coming into contact with a patient or their gametes and embryos to its respective procedure at the point of use. That's what's important, in real time. It will even alert you if any of the products that you're using have elapsed beyond their expiry dates or use within dates. And therefore, in the event of a product lot recall, it's possible to immediately answer the most important questions without any delay, including answering all of these important questions in an instant. And there are questions like, have we procured the product lot? Is it on our shelf? Have we started using it? When did we start using it? When did we stop using it? Are we still using it? Who are all of the patients who are exposed to it? And as part of what cycle and in what procedure? What gametes or embryos were affected, and have we transferred any of those embryos to a patient? Or are there any affected gametes or embryos still in the cryostores? Using a KPI dashboard, you can answer all of these questions in just a few seconds. So to use an example, in January 2018, the MHRA issued a medical device alert relating to 145 individual lots from 48 media products that were subjected to increased histamine levels in the common antibiotic that was used across all of those media. Imagine how long it would take to manually piece together data relating to 145 specified lots. It would be a nightmare in a manual system. But with a decent electronic lot tracking system, the SOP for analysis of all of these lots could be executed in less than an hour. And how do we know that? Because we did it. And then there's the time it takes to schedule everyday workflow and daily tasks. Even now, as Cecile has alluded to, the whiteboard remains a popular method for administering this. Whilst it might be well organised and highly visual, it's still fraught with risk due to human factors that lead to human error. But there is a better, cheaper alternative already available. An electronic system provides a very useful tool in an ART lab because it provides a real-time overview of patient workflow and patient cycle status. This is what you said you were going to do for this cycle of treatment, and it allows you to track that and see immediately if something out of the ordinary has happened, or if a task is overdue, or if there's been a non-conformance that quickly needs reviewing or resolving. A great example of how using an electronic system for measuring time between procedures can be found in Adams, Leisinger, and Vermilier's excellent research on behalf of the Ovation Group of fertility centres in the USA, which addresses issue number 7. Their work has successfully demonstrated how the determination of mean time using electronic witnessing systems to perform contemporary IVF laboratory procedures can be used to establish benchmarks, which serve as external standards to improve performance, and it helps you to define reasonable targets for growth and improvement. Also, manual cryo management and cryo auditing are very time-consuming processes. Studies, including those by the Ovation Group and Tomlinson et al., highlight the inefficiency and risks of manual audits, especially with the increased vulnerability of vitrified samples. It's worth considering whether these outdated practices should be replaced by safer digital alternatives. Cryo inventory movements can now be verified using the globally unique barcodes quite safely in real time. Therefore, this doesn't necessarily need to be physically checked again retrospectively to satisfy external compliance. The electronic system will even manage how much space is available in the vessels and maintain a rolling stock level of gametes and embryos available for transfer. And last, but by no means least, a significant time-related bottleneck that can be resolved with digital data capture is the analysis of data itself and insights. The most beneficial aspect of electronic witnessing and real-time data capture is its traceability. And digital traceability systems are powerful because in seconds they can convert the data captured into useful dashboards or key performance indicators. These can be used for compliance and to help drive efficiencies, offering immense benefits because it empowers you to answer the most important questions immediately, whenever you or the regulators want to or need to. So these are questions like, how many errors have we made this week or this month or this year? And what type of errors have we made? And also who made those errors and in what location and as part of what procedure? And these are exactly the same questions that would also apply to deviation from a prescribed standard operating procedure, SOP. In fact, you can answer a whole raft of complex questions instantaneously using data that's being captured in real time. But it doesn't have to be exhaustive. It's just a case of designing the dashboard you need to make informed and smart decisions in relation to the way that you work. In real time, we make it sound simple. Well, it is when you know how and if you have the right systems implemented. In summary, there will be numerous ways that any fertility centre can change if there's an incentive to save time. Implementing a well-developed electronic witnessing, traceability and insight system can save significant time, replacing the manual and the time-consuming labelling, double witnessing, form filling and transcribing, duplication of information, tracking products, workflow and daily task scheduling, benchmarking time-critical processes, cryo governance, and analysing data and insights. Investing the time to evaluate current working practices and implementing change to save time makes very good sense, because a stitch in time really will save you 9. Thank you. I'll be very happy to answer any questions. And if you are heading over to the ASRM meeting next week, we'll be set up on the Next Gen Life Labs booth number 367. We'd love to meet you there. Thank you.
I was going to say thank you, Matt, so much for that talk. Actually, it's really interesting because there are definitely a few different features actually that I didn't realize was capable. So really, really good talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's have a few questions. So first things first, we're looking at, well, one of these questions, actually, to be fair, it did pop into my head as well, which is, do you have maybe a recommendation for, because putting stickers on the dishes takes quite a lot of time, and do you maybe have sort of any tricks up your sleeve to try and speed that process up?
We do have some tricks up our sleeve, yeah. I mean, it sounds rather clunky to put sticky barcoded labels on things. If you can produce those labels at the beginning of the cycle, and they can be applied at the point of setup, it's still saving an enormous amount of time compared to printing those labels off individually, or even worse, handwriting information on dishes and tubes. We're exploring all sorts of different avenues, but we're yet to find something as versatile and ubiquitous and sophisticated as the barcode currently. Now, there are devices that will print directly onto dishes and straws. I think they're coming down the track. And we also have developed the ability to be able to read existing barcodes. So I'll give you an example of that. A really sort of time-critical bottleneck in a process might be biopsy of samples for PGT, where you may be expected to put barcoded labels on lots of little PCR tubes. What we're doing now is working closely with the manufacturers of the kits and also of the labware to pre-label the items prior to sending them to the client, so that then they can be assigned to the patient at the point of use. So that's one way that we could possibly speed up the process, and that's already actually has been implemented. There are fertility centres using that, so I think we can build on that.
Awesome. No, that's brilliant. Now, I think we are a little bit pressed for time. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the questions again for the Q&A. But for now, thank you very much. And we're going to go on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Bec Holmes, who is a high complexity lab director for multiple clinical and IVF labs. She also oversees operations within the CCRM network. She is responsible for protocol, procedure implementation, as well as aiding in staff training and ongoing quality control monitoring for the network of embryology, andrology, and endocrinology laboratories. Originally from England, Dr. Holmes obtained her bachelor's at Brunel University and her DPhil in biochemistry from the University of Oxford, where she studied epigenetics. So yeah, please take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be back at i3. Great. I know this is a great source of knowledge and credits for a lot of people, especially in the US. So thanks for doing this, Giles and the team. Let's keep it going. All right. So are we ready to retire the pipettes yet? Talking about advances in automated dish prep. All right. So you can just put your hand up, I guess, but who loves doing dish prep? I suspect it's not a huge number of us, although I will admit that if everything's labeled, I do like to spend time filling dishes, although I think all the lab here at CCRM Boston know that happens exceedingly infrequently these days. But here's an array of what we might expect for dish prep on an average day in a lab that doesn't have an automated dish prep system. So we've got a variety pack of serological pipettes, variety of different pipette sizes, glass Pasteur pipettes, gloves, and then in the bottom here we have all the variety pack of dishes and flasks that we might have for a day in the life of setting up for the next day's procedures in an IVF lab. And we know that dish prep is exceedingly important when it comes to an IVF cycle. It can really make or break the IVF cycle. Hopefully we're always using the right media, but we won't know until often it's too late. The media doesn't carry flags, pink flags, or when it's in the dish to say that your cleavage media or blast media. We really are working on trust that the embryologist is putting the right media into the right dishes. And I'm also thinking about different types of media, but also percentage of protein added, etc. Often this is a task given to junior embryologists. I might argue that this is not always the first task that I will put people in the lab, just given the severity of the impact and also the complexity. Depending on your lab, depending on your setup and your systems, you could have 1,001 different types of dishes and different combinations of dish types and dish media. And depending on the cycle type, this can lead to a lot of confusion, especially initially when you're just being sort of oriented to an IVF lab. And depending on the day, it can be a lengthy task. If you're doing 7 retrievals, not so bad, but in a busier clinic, you might be doing 21 retrievals a day. That's going to be a lot of dishes. So any room for automation in this field, I think we can all embrace. So automation, well, it's everywhere. I think probably the first thing I always think of when I see this type of machinery is auto manufacturers, but it's everywhere now, from Amazon warehouses to any type of manufacturing has some degree of automation in it. It's just the world that we live in, and the world that we've designed for ourselves. And there's also liquid handling that's already occurred in many facets of molecular biology. Probably these ones listed here are the most applicable in sort of that would be most applicable to the IVF world. So what would it take for automated dish prep to be the new norm? Well, we need to make sure that it's as good, if not better, than what we're currently doing. So when we hear the term dish prep, we often think of the whole process being automated. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about what we have successfully automated, and then what work we can still do in this process. So in order for this to be the new norm, we'd obviously want it to give us reproducible results each time, be reliable, adaptable. When your lab director just suddenly changes the media that you're going to be using or the percentage of protein that you're going to be using, you need to be able to adapt that automation to keep up with your lab. It has to be increased efficiency. I would have a hard time putting something like this in the lab if it wasn't an increased efficiency, and also a reasonable cost. We're not going to spend $1 million on this when we could be doing this manually. And you want something that is reproducible, reliable. Nobody wants a lemon. You don't want something that you have to constantly babysit to make sure that it's working correctly. And then, at the end of the day, maybe worst case scenario, having to flip to manual mode and fill the dishes yourself. There's got to be some advantages over what we're currently doing. Repetitive strain. I know when I was a junior, I had a lot of problems with repetitive strain, particularly in my shoulders, when doing dish prep at a very, very busy IVF center. We want to see decreased variability, so accuracy and speed and reproducibility have all got to be things that we can hopefully take advantage of if we're doing automated dish prep. So there's been 2 papers come out recently that have 2 different versions of an automated dish prep. Great reads if you want to use these as some references. And these are the 2 papers that I'll be discussing in the rest of the slides here. The first one is from Columbia University Fertility Center, and the robot is called April, which I really like the name of. It's Art Pipetting Robot for IVF Laboratories. There's a very quick YouTube video here on this link that basically shows you how this little robot picks up the media from, you can see the 2 bottles here in the top left, the media and the oil, and it dispenses them into what I think is time-lapse dishes in the video that is demonstrated. And then this is the other robot, doesn't have a name that I'm aware of, but it came from a lab out of China, and it can do micro drops dishes as well as center well dishes and things like 35mm dishes. I don't know if April can also do fill the center wells and things like 35mm dishes. That's something that the authors have not sort of covered, but they can at least, we know that they're doing micro drops, which is probably one of the most tedious parts of cell dish prep for anybody. So let's have a look at what these automated machines can achieve. So in the published studies, they looked at droplet size. Obviously, with microdrops, we want them to be nice and uniform, and this is the goal for any embryologist. And I think any junior will spend multiple hours learning how to pipette individual drops to the exact requirements of that lab. But here you can see on the left in figure 1, in the blue line denoted by the art robot or April. This is the droplet mass. It's very tight. There's very little difference between the droplets made in the dish or placed in the dish. And they did this. It did this by comparing the weight of the dishes from the robot versus 3 separate embryologists on individual days. So you can definitely see significant increase in consistency between the drops in using the robot. I think in the time lapse slides, and then the other robot here, we're using more traditional micro drop plates. So the first 3 dishes are ones done by individual embryologists. And then the last one there on the side is the dish made by the robot. And, typically, as we would expect with any human-made micro drop dish, you do see arrangements of the micro drops to be irregular. Some of the adjacent drops occasionally merge together. Some drops are flattened along the edges, and sometimes the volume is higher or lower, and that can really affect how the dish is going to behave. So with this automated system, you are seeing these just sort of much more reproducible dish prep than you would with than you would with humans. And then they also looked at pH and osmolarity. So obviously these are 2 very key parameters that we want to be mindful of when we're doing dish prep. With pH on the left here, April, the robot did not irreversibly impact pH of the culture media in the prepared dishes, which is ideal, what we want to see. And as well as osmolarity, there were no significant differences in osmolarity between the 2 different media over time that were detected between the manual and automated groups with the other robot. Functionality. So all well and good if we have a great robot that makes the dishes for us, but do they grow embryos? Yes, they do, but I'll just walk you through the data. Here we have functionality. So let's look at fertilization rates. With the manual versus automated, very similar, really no significant differences. Same with embryo development rates. Here we're looking at cleavage rates. Again, no significant differences between automated and manual, which is ideal. We don't, if we can get any advantage of the robots, great, but we want it at least to be equivalent to the human-made dishes, manual-made dishes. Other functionality, obviously, blast rate is going to be very important. And what was done well in this paper using the April robot is they looked at the first dish that the robot made as well as the last dish that the robot made. So just to make sure that it's consistent, it's not the first dish of the day is not the best dish it makes, and the last dish of the day is not the worst dish it makes, and vice versa. So it's consistent between the dishes that it makes throughout the day, and those dishes do act the same way as the embryologist made dishes. And then similarly, we see the functionality over time with a slight, maybe significant increase in usable day 3 embryos and blastocysts on day 5, 6, and then total blastocysts between the art robot April and the embryologist. So finally, is this the future for all labs? Well, I don't know. I would still have a lot of questions. I think we've got a ways to go, but I think this is an amazing start. Things to think about: how much media are we going to be wasting with these robots? Is there, are the lines really long? Are we going to have to do we have to prime the lines like we do like a liquid nitrogen line when we're dispensing liquid nitrogen? Is it easy to sterilize? Is it easy to use? Is it easy to get contamination within the system itself? And then what are the contamination rates like between the different automated robots? Labeling, this is a big one, and Matt has a great system for labeling dishes. I really like the way that you can just print out labels for one cycle, put them on your dishes, set up all your dishes ahead of time, and then manually fill them. Or, on the day when we finally get some robots in every IVF lab, we can manually label those dishes and then we can put them in the robot. Or even better, one day, are we going to have a robot that will barcode and label all of our dishes and then fill them? I think that's going to be beyond my wildest dreams right now, but I'm happy to see it come in if somebody's working on that. And the learning curve. I think, there's a certain level of trust that we need to have when we're doing dish prep for our embryologists. We need to trust that they're using the right media, they're using sterile technique. Similarly, so there's a learning curve with that. That takes time, as with all embryology skills. The authors in the papers did allude to the fact that this was very easy to use, and it was very quick to learn how to use it. So that's an advantage. I think we're all slightly different in how familiar we are, or how familiar we can become with new machinery. So that learning curve might change depending on who's using it. I didn't really see too much about the footprint and the portability. Not that I want to have this in my back pocket and I can, do dish prep anywhere, but our lab designs do change over time. We add equipment, we move hoods around. Does this item always have to be, is this in a set place in the lab, or can we move it, on occasion? So just sort of increasing its usability. So really great start to dish prep, automated dish prep, and really exciting. I'd love to see some of these in real life. Here are the references for those who want to read more about it. And the first reference here actually is a great read on learning about all the different steps that are involved in liquid handling, automatic liquid handling, from the density of the liquid to how well it dispenses. Really great papers if you want to read up on those. And for now, I will end it here, and happy to take questions and comments and dreams for the future for embryologists.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bex. That was an insightful presentation, very detailed and compelling. Thank you very much for that presentation. So I have a question for you, a quick one from the attendees. And it says that, could these robots also make ICSI dishes, for example, or biopsy dishes? I know you talked about various kinds of dishes, but this person wants to know if the robots can go ahead to do ICSI dishes and biopsy dishes also.
I would imagine, I've not seen them myself in person, but I would imagine so. If you have the ability to make those teeny tiny drops. And again, there's a lot of liquid handling. The physics of liquid handling is very deep, and I'm not familiar with it at all, but making like a 5 microliter drop for an egg or an ICSI dish might be different. And then of course you want to add in your PVP. I think you're adding a level of complexity there that we're not quite ready for. Particularly with the viscosity of PVP, and perhaps even the needing of a second media bottle in the robot. I'm not familiar with how many different types of media this robot can dispense. I don't know. I don't think it's like a Pepsi machine where you can choose your diet and your regular versus your Mountain Dew. But hopefully at one point we should be able to get to something like that. But I don't think it's there right now.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you everyone for the presentations. We'll move ahead for taking questions. So move to the Q&A section right now. So I have a first question, and that will be for Cecile. Cecile, thank you for your presentation. So I have a question for you. And the question says that many clinics are cautious of changing electronic medical records, even if they are outdated. People are so susceptible, to change. And some clinics would not want to lose their data. They are very scared, skeptical about taking in new automations. So what would you say to them? What would you say to these clinics? And would you encourage them to transition?
Yes, I definitely can recognize that question. So that is something that we've been thinking a lot about from the beginning, because it is very, very important that all of the historical data is migrated into the new platform. And because of that, maybe migration is not always the right solution. What we are doing with our software is actually integrating, not migrating, our software on top of the current system, on top of the current EMR via the database. We have some middleware that are then structuring all of the old data into understandable data structures that's actually useful in the day-to-day. And via this integration, we can make sure over a longer time when we transition that the data is the actual data, everything is relevant, structured the right way, it's usable before we actually make the cut in the transition. So we will use the old systems as a system of records, while Wawa, in our case, is the system of activity where all work and all thing day-to-day will be in. So yes, I get why people are nervous, and this is something that we can easily make sure will not be a problem or something to be nervous about.
Thank you very much. Amazing. Dani, please, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I was going to say another one actually for you, Cecilie, is so from Peter Lilly from Liverpool. Was just asking, as a data analyst, do you have any thoughts about how we should organize our data from our different apps? Any preferred solutions you might have?
Yes, so first of all, as I mentioned in the presentation, I don't actually think there should be many different apps in a fertility clinic or applications, because it's of course not only mobile apps. I think the smartest thing to do is to have one platform, one source of truth that can actually contain most of these apps. Like one platform in our case, we have everything for patient communication. We have a connected patient app. There is consents, there's payments, there's video calls, all of these things that normally in fertility clinics are in many different point solutions. So you have to worry about how to actually structure, collect, and make sure that the data is in one database. I would rather recommend you to migrate away from all of these many point solutions and make sure that there is one solutions that are managing and structuring the data in a way that suits your protocols in the clinic, so you know that this data is actually something that you can easily access and use in the future, for no matter if it's streamlining protocols or if it's like using data to support your decision support when there's new doctors coming in and you want to use the knowledge that you have gathered over many years of treatments via data.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Just trying to sort of simplify, because yeah, knowing how to use all the different sort of programs can be a little bit confusing at points. So yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, I would like to direct a question to Matt, if that is okay. So we have Steve Brooks from Canada, and he asked, are there any clinics using such system for inventory management in terms of receiving inventory, consuming inventory, and then initiating auto replenishment orders based on setting EOQ levels?
So the question, Steve, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the question is yes. We have a lot of clinics who have implemented lot traceability. So it's I would think most of our customers around the world are tracking the lot numbers of the products that are being used as part of a procedure. The extension of that is then to use the system to be able to count the stock levels in the storeroom, and then the phase beyond that is then to use that to be able to replenish stock. So I would say we have a lot more of our fertility centres that were partnered with are beginning to use the inventory management and the stock management feature within Matcha. It makes perfect sense to do that. We do have dashboards that will automatically link to minimum reorder levels, so they will get alerts when it's time to replenish the stock in their stock room, particularly within a group where products might be moving around from one fertility centre to the other. What we'd really love to do is take that to the next step, which is to notify the suppliers that they need to automatically replenish the stock. And that's certainly something that we're looking at currently. I'd love to catch up with Steve at ASRM if he's going, and we can further that discussion.
It was definitely an elaborated question, so thank you so much for elaborating a little bit on that. I think we have time for more question. Janefrances, do you want to ask another question?
Okay, my next question will be directed to Dr. Bec. Dr. Bec, also want to find out if these robots could be able to label the dishes, probably add a sticker to them or a code. Is that possible?
I think we have the ability to do that. We're certainly not there. These two, the two modules that are out and live in these two clinics don't currently do that, but we have that. I think we have that ability in the world to do that with other things. So getting there to the labels in IVF could definitely, I think, is something that could be in our future. I like the idea of embossing it on a dish. I think that's a great idea. You know, food industry, the electronics industry does things like this. You know, we should be able to do this with IVF dishes at some point. I'm not sure when. I did enjoy somebody's comment in the chat about dish making can be quite soothing. I wholeheartedly agree. And if it's a day when you have enough time to spend time doing dish prep, I really think it can be quite meditative. But on those days when you need to get dish prep done, yeah, it takes a lot longer. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that comment.
Thank you very much. So I agree with you also, and I know that all we need is time to have this. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Bec.
Perfect. And I actually have one more question for you, Matt, just while we're here, circling back a bit. So Alan Thornhill stated, this was a few years ago, that the mismatch rate was about 0.1. He was calling it the sort of the oops moment. And that errors were corrected in about 12 seconds on average. Your IMT data says it's higher. Yes, can you elaborate on this, please?
We have done some work recently in collaboration with Leeds University. Probably give most of the credit to Olivia Grinter, who did a very large analysis of a very large data set involving almost 500,000 procedures across a large number of fertility centres over a long period of time. And yes, Alan and Xavier's paper that was written a few years ago was fantastic. That was kind of benchmarking. It was highlighting the fallibility of humans, and we completely agree with everything that they have said. But the difference between his research and the research that we've conducted more recently is that we've broadened the net of data that's been captured. So we're not just looking at what we would consider a mismatch between two different items of labware. We're also including the selection of the wrong patient. We're including if there are too many items in the work area. We're also no longer just concerned with the identity of the patients anymore, but also the identity of the individual gametes and embryos. So was the correct item scanned in the liquid nitrogen vessel before it was removed? So it might be the right patient, but it may be the wrong embryo or gamete. So we've tried to cover all of the oops moments we can think of, and that's why we're coming out with a number which is significantly higher. It's almost 3 times as many.
Yeah.
It's about 1 in 300 as opposed to 1 in 1,000. But I think that really just both papers really highlight the fallibility of humans, and it really shows that, you know, whatever the true error rate is, and we're still searching, we know that mistakes do happen frequently, and you know, they often make headline news. So, yeah, I think it's great work that we can all build on with the data that we're capturing.
Yeah, to be fair, I actually agree, because obviously the one you're saying about the headline news is obviously the really bad mistakes, but actually it's not infrequent that people, oh, I got the wrong dish out, but it's not a different patient. It's just, oh, I got this dish rather than that dish. And
It's normal,
actually,
yeah.
it's time wasting. It's gametes being out of the incubators. So no, it's really good to gather
Yeah,
that data.
these are not necessarily errors that get
No.
carried through the cycle and lead to the wrong baby, but humans make mistakes all the time. It's normal. I can't even make a cup of tea without making a mistake. So I don't know how the
I'm actually
embryologists do it.
I have one other question for you. Just, it was back on cryo audits, and it's just because I do a lot of cryo audits, and so anything to make that process better. You're saying obviously by using the barcodes, we can maybe get rid of that manual step. Do you think, well, can you A, elaborate on that? And B, do you think the HFEA will give it the thumbs up?
If you have a good, I'll keep the answer short, but if you have a very robust system that's properly validated, then I think the answer is yes. Because if you're capturing information in real time, if you're capturing the data in real time in the right way, particularly if you have physical evidence that proves that X number of items went into this particular location within a vessel, there's really no need to go back and recheck that. It's almost pointless exercise, and it's also unreliable. Physically auditing vessels, especially now that the amount of items that the expansion of the size of the cryostores now, especially when we turn our attention to centralized storage, it's such an outdated practice. It's not possible to do that accurately. So let's rely on the data instead. That would be my view.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I would like to ask a question to Cecile. Now, it is in regards to the Ugwuodo link to your clinic. So can Ugwuodo link to any clinic, and how is the data migration managed to the new system, and how quick it can be installed?
Yes, we are both clinic, database, and EHR, EMR agnostic. So we can basically link to everything. We can also be a standalone product and service. Your second question was about the data migration. We have a
Yes.
team managing data migration. We built something called middleware that is basically just like a bridge that will take the data from the old database and actually structure all of the data in a way that's more understandable. As you can imagine, the old databases, there was a lot of choices made many years ago to structure and call the data structure something, in some cases, a bit weird. Also, some care teams are maybe using the calendar to create tasks and a lot of other things. So my team is actually spending time on structuring all of this data, understanding how the clinic works first, and then structuring the data. It's crossing this data bridge where it's basically put into new places that makes more sense, and then added to the new database via Wawa, and visualized in our platform, just to say it in a very easy way. We have a tech team that can do an intro and explain this, so it makes much more sense. We don't need any help from the clinic. Something that's very important for us is actually that all of this will be handled by us without any more work pressure put on the clinics. We will, of course, make sure you feel comfortable and orientated about everything, but me and my team will handle the entire process.
Okay, fantastic. I love the way that, and you've mentioned this before, where you, speak to the clinic and make sure that you understand their needs and their processing, and able to personalize and streamline this process. So I definitely love that. We
Yes.
have time for round more of questions. And Janefrances, do you want to ask the next question?
That's fine for me. Dani, do you have any question?
Yeah, actually, one for Bec. Basically, just a quick one from Emmy, just asking, do you know how many labs are using the April system at the moment?
I believe it's just in the Columbia Fertility Center. I think it's the demo
Wow.
version that they're working on. I believe so.
Awesome.
But if anyone from Columbia can pop anything in the chat here, I would be happy to be corrected. But I think it's just the prototype is there in their lab.
Perfect. And then I'm just seeing any last final questions. But no, I think that's honestly overall of really, really good, really interesting talks. And I think, yeah, automation is definitely needed because I think anything to save us a bit of time just would help. And it means that we can focus on what's important.
Time and sanity. Yes.
Yeah.
We all like that.
Okay, I do want to ask another question. So in regards to Cecile again. Okay, so we were wondering if you can give an example of how patient interacts better with a clinic.
Yes. So in many different ways. First of all, one of the big things that patients are looking for in the getting to or picking a clinic is actually getting the information they need to make sure that they know that this is the right clinic. Unfortunately, today, most clinics that have been a bit more innovative in how they're approaching patients, they have like a basic form on their website where it's the patients actually putting in information, their name, their address, if they've been in diagnostics, these things. And then within a month, they'll be contacted from a patient inquiry team. And next step after that is basically actually finding an appointment for initial consultation. The patients are upfront actually looking for more information. What is the right thing to do for me? How can you help me? How can you do all of these things? So basically have some of these workflows ready, automatically send out all of this information to the patient based on what you're actually inputting to you. So they will be recognized immediately and get the amount of information they need to actually feel safe about working with the clinic. Another way to do it is just basically being more transparent in the treatment journey. Patients want to see test results. They want to understand test results. When they're coming to a follicle scan, they really want to know what is a follicle scan because no one knows if you've not been doing it before. So all of these things are information that can, first of all, make the patient feel more comfortable, less anxious, but actually also take away some of the many questions that nurses are answering again and again and again. Why should I come with a full bladder? All of these things. And it's easily something we can engage patient about and give them in an app, for example, without spending time on it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your response. And I would like to thank everyone who took part of this webinar today. My brilliant co-host, Dani Wild and Janefrances Ugwuodo. I would like to thank also the other presenters, Cecile, a talk kindly sponsored by Ugwuodo Fertility, and I would like to thank Matt Pettit, a talk sponsored by IMT Matcher, and last but not least, the wonderful Dr. Bec Holmes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and not to forget the team from I3. The organizing committee of this initiative, we have Jack Cohen, we have Peter Nagy, we have Mary Ann Cervantes, we have Thomas Elliott, we have Fran Farley, we have Violetta Sora, and Gauss Palmer. Thank you very much for organizing this session.
Perfect. And of course, make sure you join us for our next I3 session. It'll be on next month, all about the endometrium. So it's called the End Game. So keep an eye out and of course, register when you see that. But yeah, for the moment, thank you everybody and good night or good morning, either or.
Thank you.